If you look on page 165, we're going to take our Samaras letterhead and we're going to save it with a new file name. Click on File, Save As, then navigate to where you would like to save it. And right now you see that we have our letterhead, and we're going to rename this Samaras Thank You Letter. So right now I'm going to click in between Samaras and letterhead and type Thank You Letter, and all I have to do is erase the H-E-A-D. You do not have to do it like that, as long as at the end you have Samaras Thank You Letter with your last name and first initial. Then hit save. On page 165, we are going to turn off the spacing because you add separate spaces. Sometimes it's 3 spaces, sometimes it's 2 enters, sometimes it's just 1 when you're setting up a letter. So where it has no normal right now, we are going to change that to no spacing. And just so you can see, right now it's set at 8 points after. So every time I hit enter, it will add an additional 8-point space. So it'll be wider spaces. If I change this to no spacing, then go back to page layout, notice now that the after is 0. So the program will not add extra spaces. On page 167, it says to show our rulers. Right now mine are showing, but if yours are not, you will go to View and make sure that the ruler box is checked. Then at page 167 at the bottom, it says, and we're going to go back home, make sure that your cursor is in that first paragraph mark right below the border, and you will hit enter 1 time. Notice now that we have 2 enters and there is no space in between the 2. And like notice here, see how wide the white space here? That's because you had the extra 8 points. Now over here on the left is the tab selector. If you click on this, every time you click on it, notice right now it has a right angle to the left. And if I click on it, now that is a center tab, right tab, a decimal tab, etc., etc. Alright? Now, we want it on the left tab. So click until you have an angle where the bar is on the left hand side, and that will be our left tab. We want to put a left tab at the 4-inch mark. So with this left tab selected, all we have to do now is slide up to the 4, and notice how it went from an I-beam to an arrow. And just to be safe, it's always better to go ahead and slide clear to the ruler and then click 1 time. And if everything's good, you should now have a left tab. Now, I don't want y'all to do this, but I want you to see how easy it is to change that tab and even get rid of it. Let's say that I changed my mind and I wanted my tab to be at 3.5. I can click with my left mouse button, notice how I have that vertical line on there now, and slide my tab to 3.5, and voila, now it has changed to 3.5. Let's say that I changed my mind and I don't want a tab after all. All I have to do is grab it and drag it, and see how it turned gray, and when I let it go, it's gone. Okay? So I will put my 4-inch tab there. Now another thing that's cool is the fact that you do have that line. Sometimes you try to line your tabs up with existing text. So let's say that I wanted everything, my tab, to line up with the word phone. So all I'd have to do is slide until the line was in front of that P, and then every time I hit tab it would line up with phone. Pretty cool. So slide, we are going to leave this at a 4-inch left tab, and that is set for the second paragraph return. Now something I want you to notice, a lot of people do this wrong and then they have all kinds of grief and they don't know why. If I hit enter, notice that my 4-inch tab follows me. Okay, every time I hit enter, the 4-inch tab is still there. Now check this out. If I were to come down here and just click, notice that now my 4-inch tab is gone. That's because I clicked down here instead of hitting enter. As long as I hit enter, the 4-inch tab will stay. Now you have a couple of options when that happens to you. Sometimes people figure it out when they're done. The easiest thing, if you've already finished your document, all you have to do is select everything where the 4-inch tab is gone. Oops. Select everything where it's awesome. Let me type something so it stays. Select everything, and then you can come over here and notice that now that 4-inch tab is everywhere. Alright, so you have a couple of choices, and I'm just going to hit undo until I get back. As long as you hit enter, it will stay though. With that said, turn to page 168. At the bottom of the page it says to insert the current date in the document. So the first thing we want to do is hit our tab key. Notice that it stops at our 4-inch tab, and I'm going to click and hold, see how it stops at our 4-inch tab. And that's a wonderful thing, because if you have an indented date, you should also have an indented closing, and they have to be exactly lined up. So in that case, you need to make sure that you have a 4-inch left tab when you do the Sincerely Yours, just so you know in advance. So we are going to insert the current date. Now the cool thing about this is that you can not type this. All you have to do is hit insert date. So we want to click on the insert date and time button. So if you go to this text section, date and time, click on that. Now whenever you do a letter or a memo, this third selection is the correct format. You always spell out the month, then you have the day, the comma, and the year, and it is fully spelled out. January is fully spelled out. None of this stuff. It's unprofessional, and this is too much. The third selection is what you always want to choose when you're doing a letter or a memo. Now, update automatically is great if it's something that you will continually be opening and you want to show that you've changed it and when you changed it. In this case, this is not what you want to happen. So we're going to leave update automatically unchecked. So make sure there is no check mark in there for you. And then say OK. I notice that it spit out the correctly spelled, correctly formatted date. And that is a wonderful thing. Now on page 169, with your cursor after the 4, you're going to hit enter 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Notice that my 4-inch tab is still following me. And then we will type in the information that is in your book. This is called your inside address. Type Ms. This is at the bottom of the page, 169. Washington Volunteer Foundation, 10 Hickory Avenue, Midway, and then the zip 98746 or 476. All right. Then when you're done with the zip code, you will hit enter 2 times, because there is one blank line in between the inside address and the salutation, which is the dear. So you can see the difference. I'm going to turn off my show hide button, and you can see that if I were to start typing right now, there is one blank line in between. That blank line is this enter mark. Alright? So, we are going to type number 6, page 169, Dear Ms. Song. And type a colon because that is what it asks for. On page 170, we'll go ahead and hit save because we've done a lot of stuff already, and it's always good. Save often. So we're going to create a building block, and the cool thing about a building block is that you can just type a couple of letters. If you've saved it, created a building block, you can type a couple of letters and then hit the function 3 key, and it will spit out whatever you've created that building block to be. So if it's something that you use a lot, like this Washington Volunteer Foundation, if we use, that's a lot of typing. So if you could change this just to say WVF and then it would spit out the whole thing, that would be a wonderful thing. So the first thing we want to do is select Washington Volunteer Foundation. Now, when you do this, you want to make sure that you do not get, see how I just got my return mark? And it is so very hard not to get that return mark. And sometimes you just kind of, oops, and there you go. So I'm going to try from the other side, and just so you know, it's okay. It's not going to be easy every time. So there you go. I was able. Now, if you and your mouse are not friends, you can hold your shift key. Notice I clicked in front of my Washington. You can hold your shift key down and you can arrow all the way over to the end instead of having to click and drag and try not to get. There we go. So your arrow keys work great, and you do not want that return mark, because if you include the return mark, then when you hit the WFV and hit F3, function 3, it'll add a return mark and you'll be in the middle of a sentence or a paragraph, and that would not work. It would look bad. So make sure that you do not have the return mark in there. Then we want to go to the Insert tab, and we're going to go to Quick Parts. Now it's in the Insert tab because once you've saved it, you can go, you're going to insert the WVF, and that's why that's in the Insert tab. So we want to choose, click on that, and we want to choose Save Selection to Quick Part Gallery. Click on that, and notice that they've named it Washington. Whatever the name is here is what you have to type for all of this to spill out. So Washington's kind of long, so we are going to type WVF, all small letters, and that way it's very quick and very easy to type. And when you do something like this, you want to make sure it's something that's easy to remember. Then you click on OK. Next, sometimes when you create a building block, you might want to change it. So on page 171, we are going to change ours just slightly so you can know that you can. Go to Quick Parts, and notice here is our WVF, Washington Volunteer Foundation. Pretty cool. You just made that. And so we are going to right click that building block, and we want to edit that building block. So edit properties. Now we're really not going to do anything important, but it's cool that you can. So in the description at the bottom of page 172, the third bullet in number 2, it says to type potential volunteer opportunity. And if you misspell it, you want to fix it. And then say OK. And it says, do you want to redefine? And we're going to say, yes, I do. So it's good that they check to make sure you're doing what you want. Now on page 172, we're actually going to use our building block. So click to the right of Dear Ms. Song at the end of the colon, and you will hit enter 2 times. because once again you need one blank line above and below the salutation or the greeting. And on number 1, page 172, the second bullet, it says to type thank you. Yep. For meeting with me this morning to discuss the mentoring position available at. And notice how I misspelled available and it automatically fixed it. Is that awesome? I love it. And we'll type a space, and then notice in your book it says to type WVF. Remember, that's our building block, right? So do you remember which function key I said to hit? If you said F3, perfect. And notice that it spits out the entire Washington Volunteer Foundation. And we are going to hit a period there, and that was wonderful and very quick. So hit save. Save and save often. And on page 173, it says with the insertion point at the end of the first sentence in the body of the letter. That's what we have right here. You're going to hit the space bar one time. And it says, I truly enjoyed our conversation. And I'm excited about the possibility of volunteering with your branch. Now, I have gotten really bad about spelling and things like that when typing, because spell check and the whole right click and fix stuff is so very convenient. Also, something that's strange that I'm trying to get used to, we finally decided to fall in with Microsoft and go to the one space after the period. Honestly, I think the two spaces after is better, looks nicer, and I don't care which one you use, but whatever you use, it must be done consistently. So whether you choose the one space after the period or the two, whatever you choose, it must be done consistently, or I will take 2 points for every one that's wrong. So make sure whatever you do, do consistently. Check when you're done before you post your work. Alright, and so from here we're going to type volunteering with your branch, and then we were going to hit the Control key on your keyboard, the Shift on your keyboard, and the space bar. Now, notice that, do you see that weird looking circle right there? That is called a non-breaking space. So that's going to force whatever word comes after branch to stay with branch. It will not let them be on two separate lines. Alright? So if you want something to stay together, Control, Shift, space bar. So now we're going to type center and team, and see how branch and center stayed together. And to do that, your computer moved branch down to the next line. Pretty cool. Hit the period. Then on page 173 at the bottom it says press the space bar, and then number 2 says type this sentence. The table below outlines my volunteer service background, and a colon, and press enter 2 times. You always want to put a blank line in between a table and the text. So 2 spaces, if you hit enter twice before and after a table, you'll have 1 blank line, so it looks very clean. Now save this, and we are at another break point in the book.